If you've ever felt you give too much and get very little in return, this video is for you. Maybe you've been in that situation where you try hard, you give your all, you're always available, and yet you feel others don't value you as they should. That emptiness hurts, because it seems that the more you give, the less you receive. But today you're going to discover something that can completely change the way you relate to others. It's not about becoming cold or distant, nor about manipulating. It's about learning to value your time, your energy, and your presence in a way that leaves others no choice but to respect it and value it too. In this video, we're going to go through 10 psychological and Stoic strategies that will transform how people see you and treat you. They aren't magic formulas. They're proven habits that change your posture, your language, your mindset, and will make you project the worth that others sometimes fail to notice in you. Picture this. Instead of chasing attention, you're the one who attracts it. Instead of begging to be valued, others seek your company, your approval, and your respect. That is the power of these strategies. I want you to understand something from the start. This is not manipulation. It's not about games, tricks, or fake masks. It's about self-respect put into practice. When you consider yourself valuable, the world has no choice but to mirror it back. So stay until the end, because I promise that when you apply these strategies, you'll not only get others to value you more, you'll also learn to value your own life more. Stakes. The risk of not applying these strategies. I want you to think for a moment about what happens when you don't know how to value yourself. The result is almost always the same. You end up begging for attention, waiting for crumbs of affection or recognition that never arrive in the measure you need. It's a draining feeling, because little by little you start to feel used, that your effort doesn't match what you receive. Your relationships start to lose balance. You give too much, they give back far too little. And the most dangerous part is that without realizing it, you fall into a vicious circle that seems to have no way out. An everyday example. You spend hours staring at your phone, waiting for a message that never comes. In a friendship, you're the one who always suggests plans, who always gives in, who works to maintain contact. In a relationship, you may feel you're the one giving all the affection, all the understanding, all the patience, while on the other side, you barely receive the minimum. In a social group, you may notice how your voice fades, how others seem to ignore you or overlook what you say. And the curious thing is that instead of stopping, you give even more, as if increasing your effort were the solution. But what you achieve is the exact opposite. The more you give without measure, the less you're valued. Your misunderstood generosity becomes a sign of weakness in the eyes of others. This is what makes not applying these strategies so dangerous. You get trapped in a pattern where every time you expect more from others, you end up receiving less. The scale tips until one day you look in the mirror and no longer know who you are without others' validation. The Stoics explained it clearly. When you hand your peace over to external whims, you lose control of yourself. And the same goes for your worth. If you let it depend on how others treat you, you'll always live in debt. You'll always feel you're not enough. That's why this video matters so much. Because understanding this risk isn't meant to sink you. It's meant to open your eyes. If you don't change now, you'll remain in that endless loop where you give too much and receive far too little. But if you apply the strategies that follow, all that imbalance can turn into respect, recognition, and much fairer relationships. Introduction to the psychological and Stoic approach. Before we dive into the 10 strategies, there's something fundamental you must understand. The value others give you always begins with the value you give yourself. Modern psychology confirms it. People react to how we present ourselves, to the level of confidence we project, and to the boundaries we set. If you show up as someone who doesn't respect themselves, others will inevitably treat you the same way. On the other hand, when you convey confidence, consistency, and dignity, perception changes. Curiously, the Stoics spoke about this more than 2,000 years ago. Epictetus said, "No one can belittle you without your consent." What does that mean? That no one has the power to bring you down, unless you hand them that power yourself. And if you think about it, this idea connects directly with modern life. We live in a hyper-connected world where many people feel their worth depends on a like, a comment on social media, or the approval of their social circle. We've grown used to measuring our importance through external metrics, followers, messages, instant attention. But all of that is fragile because it can disappear at any moment. Real change happens when you stop searching for your value outside and start building it inside. When you understand that these strategies aren't simple tricks to impress nor games to manipulate others. They are inner tools, psychological and philosophical habits that transform the way you see yourself, and as a consequence, change the way the world perceives you. In other words, what we're going to work on here is a reflection. The respect you receive is the reflection of the respect you practice with yourself, and the more solid you are within, the more evident that value will be on the outside. So from now on, I want you to stop thinking about what others owe you and start focusing on what you must build. Because when you do, the equation flips. You'll no longer chase attention, they'll be the ones seeking yours. Strategy 1. Raise your standard. The first step to getting others to value you is very simple to understand, though often hard to apply. If you don't respect your own time and boundaries, no one will do it for you. Social psychology tells us that people value what they perceive as scarce and respect what communicates firmness. If you're always available, always willing to give in, always ready to please, what you project isn't generosity, it's a lack of standards. And when your own standards are low, the world automatically responds the same way, by treating you as less important than you truly are. Think about this. When you accept plans you don't want, when you endure conversations that give you nothing, when you allow disrespect, you're sending a silent message. It's fine. My time and energy aren't worth that much. That message, even if you don't say it out loud, gets across and others understand it perfectly. Here's where practice comes in. Learn to say no without guilt. No is one of the most powerful words you can add to your life because it draws a clear line. Saying no doesn't mean being selfish, cold, or cutting ties. It means your time, your peace of mind, and your dignity have value. Imagine a friend asks you for a huge favor at the worst possible moment, right when you have your own issues to solve. If you agree just because you're afraid to disappoint, you're sacrificing your well-being. And the worst part is that person probably won't value it because your yes was easy to get. But if you calmly respond, "I'm sorry, I can't help right now. I need to focus on my own matters," the message changes completely. It may surprise them at first, even annoy them, but sooner or later it will awaken respect. Because they'll understand you're not someone who sells themselves cheap. The Stoics also stood by this stance. Seneca said that whoever is a slave to everyone is not free for himself. And that's exactly what happens when you don't raise your standards. You become a slave to others' will. Raising your standard doesn't mean becoming inflexible or cutting everyone off. It means prioritizing your life, your energy, and your dignity. If you're tired, give yourself permission to rest instead of going out of obligation. If a topic doesn't interest you, you don't have to force it. If someone crosses a line with you, you have the right to point it out. The key is understanding that your time is your most valuable resource. It doesn't repeat, it doesn't come back, and what you give away without measure today will never return. So when you learn to say no without guilt, you're actually saying yes to your life, your peace of mind, and your own worth. Remember, people value what is scarce, and if you learn not to give yourself away excessively, not to be always available, you'll start to project something many have forgotten: dignity. And dignity, sooner or later, becomes respect. Strategy 2. Master silence. One of the clearest signs of insecurity is the need to fill every space with words, to reply immediately, to give unnecessary explanations to justify what we do or think. But the truth is, in many situations, silence says more than 1,000 words. Silence used well communicates calm, confidence, and even a certain mystery. When someone talks non-stop without pauses, they communicate nervousness. In contrast, whoever knows how to wait, listen, and respond calmly projects firmness and self-control. Think of those people who don't answer a comment right away, who take a few seconds before speaking. What happens in your mind? You automatically give them more weight, more credibility, as if their words were worth more because they aren't impulsive but considered. That's exactly what we want, for your voice to carry the weight it deserves. Here's a simple exercise you can start using today, the 10-second rule. It consists of not replying immediately to a question or comment, but waiting at least 10 seconds before giving your answer. That brief pause lets you think better about what you'll say, and at the same time, projects the idea that your words aren't cheap or impulsive. Imagine someone criticizes you at work. The automatic reaction would be to defend yourself at once, justify yourself, or even get angry. But if you apply the 10-second rule, breathe, pause, then answer calmly, the other person's perception changes. You're no longer someone who reacts anxiously, but someone who controls the situation. The Stoics practiced this constantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that the best answer to anger is silence. He didn't mean staying quiet out of fear, but mastering the impulse to react immediately in order to respond later with serenity and reason. In a world where everyone seeks attention and competes to be heard, silence becomes a powerful resource. Whoever isn't afraid to be quiet shows they don't need to convince anyone of their worth. And that confidence is magnetic. Start practicing it in your daily life. Don't reply to messages in a second. Don't feel obliged to explain yourself when you say no, and let silence work for you. You'll discover that far from pushing people away, silence increases the perception of your value. Remember, confidence isn't shouted, it's transmitted. And many times, silence is the most powerful way to do it. Strategy 3. Project consistency. If you want others to value you, one of the most powerful keys is consistency. That what you say and what you do are in harmony. Few things destroy respect faster than inconsistency. Think of someone who always talks about commitment but never keeps promises, or that person who demands respect but badmouths others behind their backs. What happens? Their credibility collapses automatically. And when credibility is lost, respect vanishes with it. Consistency, on the other hand, multiplies your value. When people see that what you claim is reflected in your daily behavior, they feel they can trust you. Your word carries more weight, your presence is respected more, and little by little you project the image of someone solid, someone who can be relied upon. A practical example: imagine that in your relationship you ask for commitment, but you constantly arrive late, break agreements, or change your mind without reason. That imbalance creates distrust and wear. But if you act congruently, if you keep what you promise, your word gains enormous value. You no longer need to repeat 1,000 times what you feel or want. Your conduct shows it. The Stoics were clear about this. Epictetus said, "Don't talk about how a good man should be one." The lesson is direct. Let your example speak louder than your words. In modern life, where many project a false image on social media. Consistency becomes a rare and precious treasure. You don't need to brag about what you do or justify it with endless speeches. You just need to act consistently. True respect doesn't arise from speeches, but from repeated actions. So if you want others to value you, ask yourself, am I being consistent between what I ask and what I offer? Am I meeting the same standards I expect from others? Your answers will make the difference. Because when you live with consistency, the world notices, and little by little your word becomes something others don't doubt, but deeply respect. Strategy 4, manage your energy, not just your time. Much is said about managing time, but few understand that the most valuable resource we have isn't the hours in a day. It's the energy with which we live those hours. You can have a whole day free, but if you spend it mentally exhausted and unfocused, that time is useless. Here's the key. Your attention is a limited resource, and unlike time, which flows whether you control it or not, your energy depends on where you place it. If you give it to people or situations that don't deserve it, you inevitably end up empty. Try this practical exercise. Take pen and paper and write a list of what I call energy leaks. Ask yourself, which conversations drain me without giving me anything? Who do I talk to out of obligation and afterward feel depleted? What activities do I do just out of habit, even though they take more than they give? When you identify those leaks, you've taken the first step to reclaiming your power. Because gifting your time is one thing, handing over your energy, your focus, your peace of mind is another. Think about this. Every time you enter needless arguments, scroll social media compulsively, or try to please those who are never satisfied, you're spending a piece of your life that never returns. And the result is that when someone or something that truly matters comes along, you have nothing left to offer. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Attention is the whole soul." They knew that what you give your attention to becomes your inner world. So if you scatter your energy on the trivial, your life becomes trivial. The strategy is simple. Set clear limits on your energy leaks. Reduce contact with people who only seek to absorb your time without contributing anything. Learn not to argue about everything. And above all, direct your energy toward projects, people, and habits that truly strengthen your life. The result is immediate. When your energy concentrates, your presence gains value. Others feel it. They see you more focused, more solid, harder to distract, and naturally, they start valuing you more because they understand your attention isn't available to just anyone. Remember, your time can be measured in hours, but your energy can only be measured in quality of life. Protect it like the treasure it is. Strategy 5. Learn the art of absence. One of the most powerful paradoxes in human relationships is that people often value your presence more when they learn to live a little with your absence. When you're always available, replying instantly, showing up for every plan and every conversation, your presence stops feeling like a gift and starts being perceived as a habit. And what becomes a habit inevitably loses value. This is where the art of absence comes in. Learning to leave empty spaces so that others miss you, remember you, and truly value you. It's not about disappearing or playing hard to get, but about reducing the constant availability we often give, out of fear of losing someone. A historical example can be found in Seneca. Despite being a philosopher surrounded by powerful people in Rome, he didn't allow just anyone unlimited access to his time. He kept a small, select circle and was careful about whom he shared his life with. That selective distance didn't make him less appreciated. On the contrary, it increased the respect others felt for him. Think about this. If you're always there, answering in a second, saying yes to every invitation, what are you communicating? You're saying without words that your time and attention aren't valuable. But if you learn to step back from time to time, if you let others notice your songs or your absence in a conversation, your value rises automatically. The practice is simple yet powerful. Reduce your constant availability. You don't need to reply to every message the instant it arrives. You're not obliged to be in every meeting or accept every invitation. Learn to give space not only to others but to yourself as well. That space serves a double function. It strengthens your inner world and at the same time makes your presence feel more special. It's like a work of art. You don't appreciate it when it's in front of you every day, but when you step back and look again with new eyes. The Stoics said that a life well lived doesn't depend on how much you share with the world, but on how much of yourself you can serve. Well-managed absence isn't coldness, it's a silent reminder that your time has value. Remember, sometimes you don't need to do more to be valued. You just need to be there a little less. Strategy 6. Strengthen your inner world. There's a psychological and stoic truth that never fails. The fuller you are inside, the more value you project outside. People who feel empty try to fill that void in others, and that creates dependency, anxiety, and a constant need for approval. But those who have cultivated a strong inner world don't need to beg for attention. On the contrary, they radiate a confidence that attracts respect. The key is understanding that external valuation begins with internal self-valuation. If you don't consider yourself valuable, if you don't respect yourself or treat yourself with care, how can you expect others to do so? Everything starts within. This is where inner strength practices come in. One of the most effective is journaling, writing your thoughts, emotions, and reflections every day. This habit helps you know yourself better, put your feelings in order, and above all, discover patterns that may have gone unnoticed. Over time, that clarity translates into more confidence and less need for external approval. Another powerful practice is Stoic meditation. I don't necessarily mean sitting with your eyes closed for hours, but taking a few minutes each day to reflect on what's in your control and what isn't. This simple distinction, repeated as a habit, protects you from unnecessary frustrations and strengthens your ability to stay calm. And let's not forget the value of solitary hobbies. Activities like reading, painting, solo sports, or even walking alone are spaces where you learn to enjoy your own company. When you can feel good by yourself in solitude, you project an independence that inspires respect. Marcus Aurelius summed it up clearly. Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it can always spring up if you look. The Stoics knew that everything you need to be whole is within you, not in others' hands. Strengthen your inner world every day, even with small habits. Over time, you'll notice a radical change. You'll no longer depend on external validation. And ironically, that's when you'll receive the most appreciation from those around you. Because people respect those who don't need them, yet choose them freely. Remember, respect starts with you. And when you build a strong inner world, others inevitably perceive it and value it. Strategy 7. Take care of your body language. Before you open your mouth, you're already saying something. Your posture, your eye contact, the movement of your hands, and even how you take up space send a clear message about how you see yourself. And here's the point. If you don't project confidence, it'll be hard for others to value you as you deserve. Body language reflects your inner world, but it's also a tool you can train consciously. A straight back, a firm step, a clear voice, and steady eye contact convey silent authority. You don't need to impose yourself with shouts or speeches. It's enough for your body to speak for you. Picture this example. You walk into a work meeting or a social group. Two people arrive at the same time. One comes in slouched, looking at the floor with a weak tone of voice. The other comes in upright, looking ahead, with a firm greeting and a confident smile. Who do you think will get more attention? The difference isn't in what they say, but in how they say it. The Stoics also spoke about this. Epictetus advised watching not only what we think, but also what we express outwardly, because the body is the first impression of our mind. Someone who cares for their body language projects control, self-mastery, and serenity, virtues the Stoics considered essential. Here's a small exercise. The next time you enter a room, do it consciously. Straighten your back. Breathe deeply, hold eye contact for at least 3 seconds with whoever greets you, and speak with a clear voice. Although it may feel forced at first, it soon becomes a natural part of your presence. Remember, it's not about pretending to be someone you're not, but aligning your body with your inner worth. When your body language communicates self-respect, others notice immediately. And the best part is you don't have to ask for attention or recognition. It arrives on its own because your presence demands it. Strategy 8. Avoid over-explaining. One of the most subtle ways to lose value in front of others is the need to justify yourself excessively. When someone asks you a question or challenges your decision and you respond with a long list of excuses, defenses, and justifications, what you're really communicating is insecurity. Think about this. When a person is sure of what they're doing, they don't need to explain themselves much. Their actions speak for themselves and their response is brief, clear, and firm. In contrast, when someone feels they must convince the other of every detail, they project that they aren't convinced themselves. An everyday example: you're invited out and decide not to go. A brief, confident response would be, "Thanks for the invitation, but I won't be able to make it this time." And that's it. The insecure version would be, "I can't because I'm tired, because I have to get up early tomorrow, because I don't feel like it, and I also feel a bit off." See the difference? The first response conveys self-respect. The second conveys insecurity and even a need for approval. The Stoics also practiced this virtue. Epictetus taught that we don't owe an account of our lives to everyone, only to ourselves. Serenity is born when we stop justifying every step and simply act with conviction. Here's a practice. For 1 week, shape your answers to be brief, clear, and confident. It doesn't mean being curt or rude. It means removing the need to decorate your words to please. A simple yes, no, or "I can't right now" can be far more powerful than 5 minutes of explanations. Remember, too many words weaken your message's impact. Brevity, on the other hand, projects firmness and confidence. When you stop over-explaining, others understand that your decisions aren't negotiable and that your time, energy, and attention have value. Strategy 9. Give others their due value. There's a universal psychological truth. Those who know how to recognize are also recognized. Human relationships aren't based solely on what we give materially, but on how we make others feel. When you help someone feel valued in your presence, that person will tend to return the same respect and attention. But here's where many go wrong. They confuse giving value with flattery. Exaggerated flattery, empty praise, and words said only to please end up having the opposite effect. You lose credibility, and others sense you're seeking approval. What truly works is authentic positive reinforcement. Recognizing the good in others sincerely, specifically, and without expecting anything in return. For example, instead of saying, "You're amazing, the best of all," which sounds generic and even forced, you can say, "I admire your discipline to follow through on what you set out to do. It's inspiring." That kind of genuine recognition not only strengthens the bond, but also turns you into someone whose opinion carries weight. The Stoics also spoke about balance in relationships. Seneca said true friendship isn't based on constant asking, but on giving from virtue. Recognizing others doesn't make you less valuable. On the contrary, it places you in a position of security because only someone whole can value others without feeling threatened. Here's a simple practice. Each day, aim to give one sincere recognition to someone around you. It could be a coworker, a friend, or even a family member. It's not about inventing compliments, but observing carefully and highlighting something real that deserves to be mentioned. Over time, you'll notice that others begin to associate you with someone whose word matters. Someone who doesn't need to exaggerate, but whose words, when spoken, have impact. Remember, when you give authentic value, you don't lower yourself, you rise, and that energy reflects back in how others start treating you. Strategy 10. Live as if you needed nothing. The final strategy is perhaps the most powerful of all. Live as if you needed nothing. Not because you should reject people or the world, but because true strength, as the Stoics taught, lies in self-sufficiency. When someone senses you depend too much on their approval, attention, or company, your value automatically decreases. In contrast, when you project that you're capable of being well on your own, that your peace doesn't crumble if someone walks away, you generate immediate respect. That's the paradox. The less you need, the more you're valued. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly: he who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. That inner harmony is what transmits power, because it shows your stability doesn't depend on anything external. Living as if you needed nothing doesn't mean locking yourself into cold individualism or rejecting affection. It means enjoying people, experiences, and life, but from freedom, not dependency. You can share, love, and collaborate, but never from fear of losing. The practice is simple yet transformative. Every day, remember that you are already enough on your own. Everything else, friendship, partnership, achievements, recognition, is a complement, not the basis of your worth. When you internalize this, the way you walk, speak, and relate changes completely. Others perceive it and begin to see you as strong, free, impossible to manipulate. In the end, living as if you needed nothing is the ultimate display of power and freedom. And that energy will inevitably make others value you far more than if you tried to please them. We've reached the most important point of this entire journey. We've talked about standards, silence, consistency, energy, absence, inner world, body language, avoiding over-explanation, giving others value, and living as if you needed nothing. And you may wonder, what ties all these strategies together? The answer is simple but powerful. Everything springs from self-respect. When you learn to value yourself, others have no choice but to value you too. That's the great revelation. The way you treat yourself becomes the scent manual others use to treat you. If you ignore your own boundaries, give your time without discernment, and seek to justify yourself excessively, the message you send is that you deserve nothing more than crumbs. But when you live with dignity, when you choose from inner abundance, when you enjoy your own company and don't need to beg for attention, something magical happens. You become a magnet. Others begin to feel your presence as something valuable. Your silence carries weight. Your words matter. Your absence is noticed. Not because you chase approval, but because you project it from within. You no longer run after anyone. You no longer plead for attention. You attract respect, affection, and consideration without asking. Imagine a magnet. It doesn't strain to chase metals. It doesn't pursue them. It simply has such a powerful inner force that they come to it. That's self-respect. When you cultivate it, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. They perceive it, feel it, and recognize it. And here's the truth that changes everything. The key isn't to manipulate others into valuing you, but to become someone impossible to ignore, because your value is reflected in every gesture, word, and decision. We've reached the end of this journey, and I want to leave you with a clear idea. Don't look for people to beg for you. Be so integral and strong that they have no choice but to value you. True respect isn't torn out with pleas or disproportionate sacrifices. Respect is planted in you and blossoms outward. When you decide to raise your standards, master silence, care for your consistency, your energy, your body language, and your inner world, you stop being someone who asks and become someone who inspires. You don't need to shout your worth or convince anyone. Quiet strength, inner peace, and self-sufficiency project a power everyone perceives. That is the essence of these 10 strategies. Not to manipulate, but to demonstrate with your life that you know who you are and what you're worth. And now comes the most important part, moving from theory to practice. I challenge you to choose one of these 10 strategies and apply it for the next 7 days straight. Just one. Do it consistently and watch how your way of relating changes and how the way others start treating you changes too. It could be learning to say no without guilt. It could be practicing the 10-second silence before responding. It could be reducing your availability or stopping the over-explanations. It doesn't matter which you choose. The essential thing is to start. Because transformation doesn't happen by watching this video, it happens when you put what you've learned into action. And to make this commitment even stronger, I want you to write it in the comments. Which strategy will you apply first to make sure you're valued? By sharing it, you not only hold yourself accountable, you also inspire others who, like you, are ready to stop begging for attention and start projecting respect. Remember, the person who lives from self-sufficiency, consistency, and self-respect will never have to beg for worth, because they become someone impossible to ignore.